Welcome, everybody, to the Injury Prevention Plus Safe Environment for Every Kid, or SEEK QI Program Wave 6 Action Period Call number 5. We are moving through them. We are on the second to last call of this wave of the program, and I appreciate all of you for joining. We also want to thank our program partner, the Ohio Department of Health, their Violence and Injury Prevention Section, or VIPS. And so the agenda today, I want to welcome you. We'll hear from Zainab regarding data and how things are looking through the current months. And then we'll hear from the Child Passenger Safety Team. And then if there's time, QI Corner and next steps from me. Okay, and if you can do so safely in the chat for attendance purposes, if you could please share your name and your practice. And Zainab, I have your data slides when you're ready.
Thanks, Brooke. I wanted to first of all thank everybody for submitting their data. I know some practices have been submitting paper copies. If you do have those, please make sure to submit them. We can start going into the slides. Again, these are slides representing everybody's data that has submitted, or any of the iPad data that we've received. You'll receive your individual level data by the end of the week, hopefully. But our first umbrella topic is social needs. Again, with the screening, we're doing perfectly great here. So everyone that's started the survey has completed all the questions regarding social needs. In terms of counseling, we saw an increase for the birth to 12 months from 55% to 89% in April, but it's been consistently high for the older age group. Next slide, please. For the family needs, again, with the screening, we're doing great here. Counseling has always been pretty high. The family needs have been pretty low, in general, and then usually most of those are being counseled on. So, a little bit of a dip for the younger age group, but nothing too concerning. Next slide, please. Now we have home safety. Again, this is our largest portion of the survey. So the majority of the needs that the families are having are within this group, um, within this group of questions. So I'm sorry for the sound. My sister brought her child here for today, so you'll hear a little bit of squeaking on the background. But yeah, so in terms of screening, we have 100% screening. In terms of counseling, again, even though this is um, the largest portion of the survey, and we have the most needs here. You guys are doing pretty great in terms of counseling. Next slide, please. Car seat safety, we did have a little bit of a dip in terms of birth to 12 months. There was one specific practice that had a few needs, but none of those were counseled. Again, I know we're in our last month of data collection, but if you're providing the resource sheet that we're giving you to those families, then technically, they do have some resources regarding car seat safety in there, and so that could be used in terms of counseling. Next slide, please. Safe sleep is only asked for of the younger age group, so the birth to 12 months. Again, we're doing pretty great here in terms of both screening and counseling. Resources provided. This can be any of the resources that we've given you, so the AAP resources or any resources that you have at your practice that you've consistently been giving your patients. But yeah, we did see significant increases since February. But yeah, we hope to continue to see those numbers increase in our last month of data collection in May. Data tool completion rate. I know Brooke has been consistently asking for, your patient totals, and so that's where this number comes into play. So of everybody that's coming into the practice, how many are actually receiving the screening tool? Um, we are seeing low numbers here. We were hoping to see a higher percentage of your patient population receiving the screening, but in April, we saw 21% of your patient population receiving the screening tool. Next slide, please. Caregiver feedback survey. Honestly, these numbers are very impressive to me. So of everyone that's completing the survey, how many of everyone that you're giving the survey, how many are completing the caregiver feedback survey? And I know that, some of you are submitting in paper copies, and so those are not included in here. But yeah, so, we're seeing very high here, we're seeing very high numbers of caregiver feedback surveys being completed, compared to another program that we have at the AAP, and that's at 94% in April. Next slide, please. So of those that are completing the caregiver feedback survey, we have 96% having some plan to change. So in the caregiver feedback survey, I know that that's not something that you necessarily have access to or that you complete on your side, but they are asked whether or not they plan to make a change for every single one of the questions that they indicated a need for. And so if a family has multiple needs and they plan to make a change in at least one of those needs, then they are part of that 96%. Next slide, please.
Zainab, I'll just pause here and say that I'm impressed with the increase in percentage for the plan to change.
Yes, yeah, it is very impressive. Just in general, with the SEEK program, I feel like this caregiver feedback survey portion has done really well, um, compared to one of our other programs, again, that's having a caregiver feedback survey. Um, and so again, I mentioned that within the caregiver feedback survey, they are asked on a Likert scale how likely or how likely they are to make that change. Do they plan to make a change right now? Are they considering making a change? And so all of that is all of that is reflected in these bar charts, but each point is reflective of one of those needs. So the majority, again, are ready to make a change. The vast majority. So if we're looking at the blue, orange, gray, and yellow parts of the people that are between like ready to make a change right now or have some sort of plan to make some change, that's the majority of the people that we have. Only 2% have no thought of changing. And then for the DEI, or sorry, for the focused populations portion of the program, we're interested in four focused populations: Medicaid, African Americans, Hispanics, and other. And the other portion can include Asians, uh, anyone that indicates that they are Middle Eastern, or they indicated that other was their race, are included in here. And so they could be mutually exclusive. So they could be African American and also be a Medicaid holder. So the majority of the patients that are completing the survey, or I think the majority of the patient populations that you are seeing in your practices are Medicaid holders. So it does make sense for us to see a high portion of that. And then we have the second highest portion of African Americans, and very low percentages for other and Hispanic. Um, and so, we talked about them having needs and us counseling on those needs. So here we're really interested in knowing, is there a specific focus population that is not receiving counseling at the same rate that everybody else is, or as the white population is? And so this can kind of give you some areas of opportunity of where you can focus more of your efforts, or make it more of an intention to give, resources out to these specific groups. But overall, for the injury and for the social determinants of health, we're seeing that um, the African American and Medicaid patients have the highest rate of counseling. So of all of the needs that they indicate that they have, they're receiving about 80 to 85% of those needs being counseled on. We are seeing lower percentages in Hispanic and other, but again, because those denominators or those base populations are low to begin with, any one patient that doesn't receive counseling is going to significantly affect the overall, if that makes sense. And then if we divide that by injury and social determinants of health, it looks like injury receives more counseling. And again, that's because injury includes, the home safety, and Brooke, correct me if I'm wrong, it includes the home safety, safe sleep, and car seat safety. And those represent a larger portion of the survey, and so there are more needs there. Again, because there are a higher number of needs that could be counseled, any change in that number is going to minimally affect the overall. And then social determinants of health is family needs and social needs. Those needs are less, but again, we're seeing less in terms of, or we're seeing smaller numbers in terms of needs that are being counseled, but still overall pretty great at 80% for the Medicaid and African American. And then for the Hispanic and other, a little bit lower, but I think I think it's fine. But if you notice in April, we're seeing lower numbers of counseling overall compared to March and February and January. I don't know if it's because we're creeping towards the end of the project or if there's anything that's going on that we could help with, but in terms of counseling for the overall needs, we are seeing a little bit of lower numbers here. Um, yeah, I think that's the end of my slides. If anyone has questions, please go ahead and ask. These last few slides in terms of like the focus populations and the caregiver feedback survey are not going to be included in your individual level data. I know you've already seen those slides before, so they'll just be an update of the actual screening and counseling for the different umbrella topics. But if you are interested in seeing that data specific to your practice, please let us know and we can provide that data for you. But if no one has any questions right now, if anyone has questions later, please don't hesitate to email Brooke or I, and we'll be glad to go over any of that data or any of those questions with you.
Thanks, Zainab. Any questions for her right now? And like she said, the individual data results will be out at the end of this week or beginning of next week. And then you can certainly ask questions at that time too.
Yes.
Thanks, Zainab.
Thank you.
And before I forget, if you haven't done so yet, please add your name and practice name into the chat, please, for attendance. And then we are on to child passenger safety, and I will stop sharing.
All right, can you see my slides?
Looks good, thank you.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Kirsten Frisora. Heidi isn't able to be with us today, but I am a car seat technician for almost 10 years now, and I'm a car seat instructor, which means I teach other people how to be car seat technicians. So I'm here to talk to you guys very briefly about car seats. Feel free to pop any questions in the chat or unmute yourself as we go along. So just real quick, Heidi and I both are regional coordinators for the Ohio Buckles Buckeyes program. And that is a currently statewide program that has location in every single county that provides free car seats and booster seats to income eligible families. And so you can see each block of counties is broken up by color. And so my region is that big orange blob right in the middle, region 5 for Central Ohio, and then Heidi's is that yellow up top. So if you have any questions or like you're looking for resources for clients in these areas, you can always reach out to the regional coordinator for these programs to help connect families to free car seats. So just some basic car seat safety facts. So motor vehicle crashes are the second leading cause of death for children and teens. Seatbelts help reduce the risk of injury or death by 45%. Reduce death by 45% and risk of serious injury by 50%. So pretty substantial numbers. And then car seats themselves decrease the risk of fatal injury by 71% for infants and 54% for toddlers. So certainly things we want to make sure that we're using. I want to make sure that we're using the right way. So why do car seats work? One, they keep kids in the car. That same goes for seatbelts for adult passengers, but really in the event of a crash, you are much safer, typically within the vehicle. So that's a big component of them. They help protect the head, neck, and spine. I don't have to tell you guys how vulnerable those parts of the body are, especially in young children. And so car seats significantly help protect those parts of the body and reduce injury to them in the events of crashes. They spread out the crash forces across larger parts of the body. because of all the points of contact the seatbelt or the harness has on the child in that car seat, it helps spread those crash forces out and reduces the injury. And again, it holds them in at the strongest parts of the body, so the skeleton, the hips, and the shoulders. Again, probably things that seem like common sense, things that you might already know. Our Ohio law is a bit wonkily worded for our taste as car seat technicians. But basically the way it's written is that all children under the age of 8 must be in some kind of child restraint. So a child restraint includes car seats or booster seats. So we want to make sure that we are having all children who are under the age of 8 at minimum using child restraints. It's possible that over 8-year-olds might still need to use them, but we'll get into that a little bit later. The second component of our law is that we are a proper use state. And what that basically boils down to is that a car seat or booster seat has to be used how the manufacturer says it's to be used. So I can't put a 1-year-old in a booster seat because that booster seat says the child has to be a minimum of 40 pounds, 4 years old, and however many inches tall. So we wouldn't be able to use that because it's not following the instructions of the car seat manufacturer. So again, our laws aren't the greatest when it comes to child passenger safety, but it's still something. All right, so basics for car seat safety. We want children to stay rear facing as long as possible. Moving from one stage to the next shouldn't be considered like a milestone or something that families should try and rush into for anything. We want them to be in each stage as long as possible to help protect that growing body. So just remember, every child is different. So some may reach the next stage or sooner than others, just based on how quickly they're growing, where they are in that growth chart. But children, babies under 1 year of age must be rear facing. There is no car seat that allows a child to forward face if they're under 1 year old. So all babies 1 year or younger have to face the back of the car. For toddlers, so that's between that 1 to 3 year old range, we do want them again to stay rear facing as long as possible. And that's just to protect that head, neck, and spine. As I'm sure you know, proportionally, kids have big heads and they grow into them as they age, but we want to protect that big head as long as possible. And having them rear face allows us to do that better. So we want to try and reach those height and weight limits. There are now some car seats that require a child be at least 2 years old before they face the front. That goes again with our proper use aspect of our law. So if you're ever unsure if a family comes into you asking if their child can move to a different stage, I would just recommend them to a car seat technician and we'll give you a way to find those in your area, just because they're going to be able to best help that family figure that out. Then we've got our slightly older kiddos, so our 3 to 5 year olds. So they're going to be in that forward facing harness still. So they've turned to face the other direction. They're still in that harness seat again for as long as possible. We lose a smidge of safety every time we advance to a different stage. So we want to make sure that they're still in those harness seats as they get bigger, again, trying to reach those height or weight limits. Then we move into booster seats. So those are for those bigger kiddos. So roughly 5 to 8 or more are going to be in those booster seats. We see a lot of young kids moving straight from the harness seat into nothing. So 5-year-olds, because we go in and teach booster safety to kindergartners or incoming kindergartners, and so many of them tell me that they're not in anything because they're a big kid now. And they are much bigger. I'm not going to deny them that, but legally they still have to be in a booster seat or car seat in our state. And just for safety reasons as well. So at least until 8 years old. And then once they get to over 8, some of them might still need that booster seat. But we do want them to ride in the back seat until they are 13 years old. And then again, sure, you know certain things about how the body changes once a child hits puberty and their bone density and all of that fun stuff. So we do want to make sure that they're in that back seat until they're at least 13 and their bones are stronger, more dense, and can better withstand the impact of a frontal airbag were to go off in a car. Alrighty, so this is something that we've been running into with clients just in our area, at least in Franklin County. So the seats that we provide to our clients is called a convertible seat. And that's like what you see in the picture. Basically, that just means it's a seat that faces the back of the car, and then it can eventually turn around to face the front once kiddo is big enough. A newborn does not need that handled seat, that infant seat, to go home from the hospital. that's a misconception that we're seeing a lot with not just caregivers, but with medical professionals, just basically society in general, because they think these seats are much too big. But a lot of these seats do go down to as low as 4 or 5 pounds. And as long as the baby meets those minimums listed on the seat, they're perfectly safe to go home in it. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, that a family does not have to have the seat with the handle on it in order to go home. They can have one of these, which maybe it's considered a larger seat, but as long as the height and weight minimums go down far enough and the child meets them, perfectly safe to use them going home. This seat does also last longer. So typically families have to stop using that handle seat within the first year, sometimes sooner, depending on how quick baby grows. These seats typically last families 6 years, or if not more. All right, and we already touched on this a little bit for rear facing, but again, we just really want to hammer it home. We want them to stay rear facing as long as possible. Because the moment we turn them around to face the front, they experience a crash like we would with the head getting thrown forward. And since they're not all fully developed yet, that can cause some very serious injuries. So we really want to make sure that we are paying attention to the height and weight limits on the different car seats. And again, I'm not expecting you guys to read the labels, or you can just inform parents on how to find them, or again, always refer to car seat techs, because we can help families best figure out how to use their seats and when the next stage is coming up. I will just say that if you've got a kiddo who is maybe a bit longer, we are not worried about leg injuries when kids face the back of the car in their car seats. Leg injuries are super rare when they face the back. They're also actually more common if the child faces the front, because their legs will kick up in the event of a crash and connect with different things. So we like to tell parents we're more worried about head and shoulders, not knees and toes. So if a leg injury were to happen while rear facing, not the best, but it's better than anything happening up top, and leg injuries heal faster and better than anything that might happen to the head or neck. So just things to keep in mind. Again, if you don't remember all of these tips and tricks and information, you can always refer to a car seat tech. And these are just crash tests, just with dummies showing you the same kind of car seat with the same crash test dummy, going the same speed, just facing the back versus facing the front. So this is why we want to try and keep them rear facing as long as we can, because you can see in our rear facing video right there, we don't see that child hardly at all. The entire body is cradled and protected, while in the forward facing seat, there is that hard forward movement with the head and neck moving forward, and the higher potential for injury if that child's not developed enough, old enough to potentially withstand those forces. We as adults honestly would be safer facing the back of the car, but that's not feasible at the time. Okay. So one thing we see a lot again is kids moving out of the harness too soon and into that booster. So we want to make sure that kids are actually booster ready. So majority of boosters have an age minimum along with height and weight minimums. So we want to make sure the child has to meet all 3 of those things before they can move into a booster seat. Ideally, again, they've outgrown that harness first, but I also understand that school pickup and drop off lines can get hectic, and the schools can sometimes apply pressure on caregivers to make it go faster by transitioning kiddos to boosters sooner. So we want to make sure that they meet all of the minimums, so age, height, and weight to sit into that booster, and that also child's mature enough. A lot of the minimums for booster seats are 4 years old, and I can tell you I've never met a mature 4-year-old. If you have, then I am very impressed. But we want to make sure kiddos mature enough to sit in the seat and not unbuckle themselves, to not take that seat belt and do things they're not supposed to with it. So maturity is also a really big piece of if a child's ready to move into a booster seat or not. Can they stop using a booster seat? So as I've said, in Ohio, they have to be at least 8 years old or 4'9" to move out of that booster seat. I'm sure you have seen, and I have seen some pretty tiny 8-year-olds. So some people see that age minimum, and they're like, okay, 8, we're done. But we really want to make sure that they are passing what we call the 5-step test, which is on the screen right here. And that's going to let us know that that seatbelt, which was designed for an adult, is actually fitting that child the way it's supposed to keep them safe. Because if a child moves to a seatbelt by itself too soon, it can cause seatbelt syndrome in the event of a crash, which is a set of horrible injuries. So we want to make sure that families are going through the 5-step test in every vehicle that the kiddo's potentially riding in to make sure that that seatbelt's fitting them the right way and is actually going to protect them in the event of a crash. And we have free handouts on this specifically. So if you're interested in having it at your practice, let us know and we can probably get you some. All right. And this is just a slow motion video that shows a child that has moved out of the booster a bit too soon versus a child in a booster seat. So this is a 6-year-old child properly restrained in the booster versus not. And you can see how the bottom child in the image slid out from underneath the seatbelt. And that would cause a whole host of injuries conducive to seatbelt syndrome. And that is just at 35 miles per hour, which families are often going much faster than that. So we really, again, want to make sure that children are riding in those proper restraints, booster seats, car seats, for as long as they need them. You are going to have those outliers where the kid does hit 4'9" at age 7. And if that's the case, then they 5-step, all right, they're done. But we really want to make sure that they are riding what they can to keep them as safe as possible. In line with that, unfortunately, humanity is great, and we have non-compliant and counterfeit car seats. So we tell families they have to be super, super careful when they are shopping online for car seats. And this is because there are now fake car seats out there, and they have gotten better and better at making their products seem like the real deal. Some of them even steal pictures from real products and use it instead, and then they ship a fake product. So we want to make sure that they are really careful when shopping online. Temu, not a reliable place. I was on there the other day and saw a car seat on there for like $8, and you just know that you're not going to get a car seat for $8 and it be safe. Facebook Marketplace also isn't safe because you don't know what was happening with that seat before you got it. Even Amazon clients have to be super careful that they are seeing who the seller is, and it's not just some random third party instead of the manufacturer of the car seat, because those third-party sellers are where those counterfeiters are sneaking in. So non-compliant and counterfeit seats are not safe to use in the US. So counterfeit seats are just complete fakes. It's a fake product. It's never been crash tested to be proof that it is safe. And some actual car seat manufacturers have gotten a hold of the counterfeit products and crash tested them like they would their own seats, and they just fall apart. And I have a video of that in a little bit. Non-compliant seats are seats that might have been bought in Europe or from a European company. And so they pass the standards over in Europe or in a different country, but they don't meet our standards. And so they're still not safe to use here. So things to keep an eye out for are labels. So non-compliant seats are going to have different kinds of labels. Our label here in the US is a big block of text, as you can see in our US label example on the screen, while other countries have images or those big orange blocks that say that they have been certified. So if you're seeing the big orange square, that's for European seats. We cannot use them here. There are some seats that do dual certify for the US and Canada. So don't automatically assume that if you see the Canadian label on there that it's not good here. You just need to look for that block of text also. So again, I'm not expecting you to thoroughly inspect a car seat if a family brings it in with them for an appointment. But if you see some of these things, that's an immediate, like, hey, flag, let's take a closer look at that or refer them to a car seat tech. Counterfeit seats are going to be missing a lot of labels. They kind of know what they're supposed to be doing. They've got a vague idea of what's supposed to be on there, but they don't have everything. So this is a very popular option in our area, and I'm sure in very many, it's called the Doona seat. It turns into a stroller, very convenient, a bit pricey, but families love the convenience of it. There is a copycat out there, and you can see that they look very similar. So red flags, just for eyeballing these anywhere, is the branding. So you can see on our slide here for the real Doona, at the base of the handle, it says Doona on it and has a little plus next to it. On our copycat, they've got typically some just kind of weird shape or symbol. It doesn't have the brand name of the actual seat. The copycat also calls it a 4-in-1 car seat. You can see that on the back leg going down on that stroller. That's not what a 4-in-1 car seat is. A 4-in-1 car seat is a multi-stage car seat that can be like rear facing, forward facing, to booster seat, to backless booster. So it's got multiple stages in it. The copycat just knows that's a car seat term, and they slapped it on there to make it seem impressive. So we just want to make sure that we are trying to keep an eye out for these. And if you see a family come into your practice with them, try and catch them, try and educate them, send them to a car seat tech to get more information. Because again, these are not safe in the events of a crash. More signs of a counterfeit or non-compliant seat is the harness. US seats have 5-point harnesses. So that means it has one that goes over each shoulder. So 1, 2 shoulder, over each hip, 1, 2 hip, and then in between the legs. So if it does not have a point that goes over each shoulder, over each hip, and in between the legs, then that's going to be a red flag. Having a chest clip is not required in the US, but currently all US seats that do meet our standards does have that chest clip right in the middle for that number 2 on the screen. And you can see in our regulated seat, we've got that chest clip. In our unregulated seat, we don't. And the unregulated seat also only has a 3-point harness. So it goes over each shoulder and then in between the legs. And also those strap materials are much skinnier. They look like they might have been on like a high chair or something. So these are just some automatic things that you can catch, as well as, again, labels. The counterfeit seats are going to be missing labels. They're not going to have everything that they're supposed to have on it, or sometimes it's in incorrect grammar. So again, I'm not asking you to like read every single label, but just something to try and catch just by a quick glance at a seat to see if it's got some of the parts that it's supposed to. And this is a video showing that counterfeit stroller seat. So the Duna, the company that actually makes the seats that are certified, got a hold of one of the counterfeits and they crash tested it, and it does just fall apart. I'm going to see if this lets me fast forward to the 19 seconds like I'm supposed to. Okay. Ooh. Wasn't supposed to exit completely out of that, but so you can see that they don't go through any type of testing. They don't go through any type of crash testing, and the counterfeit fell apart. The next screen also shows a counterfeit, what we call travel vest. So this is an alternative for kids who might have adaptive needs, or families that have multiple children in a car and not very much car space. And so this is a counterfeit travel vest. Again, only at 30 miles per hour, and a lot of families go so much faster. And say all of these counterfeit or non-compliant products are very easy to find online. They're often cheaper, and as you can see, they are very clearly not safe to use in the events and when traveling. So we always want to make sure that we are telling families to be careful. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So we always want to make sure we're very careful when shopping online. This is, these slides are, I believe, going to be shared with you, but these are just the questions that you can ask clients if they come in, like, do they have a car seat? Yes. Is it one that's made to use in the US? Yes or no? And then there's just a flow chart on what to do and how to obtain a seat if they need one, if they qualify for one. Other things to consider. So we are at that weird time of year, still even in mid-May, where I sometimes discuss both of these things with clients. So we want to make sure kids aren't wearing bulky coats while they're in the car seat. So having bulky clothes, so coats that have that extra padding inside of it, adds a lot of extra space between child and the harness. As you can see in our picture, kiddo is wearing a red coat. It looks like that harness is as tight as it's supposed to be. But when they undid it, they didn't loosen it or anything, took the coat off and put them back in, you can see there's a lot of extra space in there. And so that can be extremely dangerous. It can even mean that a child could potentially come out of their car seat in the event of a crash if they have too bulky of clothes on, because that extra padding will compress in the event of a crash and child could come out. So just something to, again, try and educate families on, especially if you see a child coming in like one of those big snowsuits while still strapped into one of those handle seats or something like that. Then heat stroke, I meant to update this image. They just said it's now closer to like 60, 65 degrees outside before the inside of your car starts to get too hot for a child, because they can't regulate their temperature like we do. So we want to make sure we're talking to caregivers about being extra careful. We know that nobody ever intentionally leaves kiddo in the back of the car, but unfortunately hot car incidences still happen with regularity. So we want to make sure that because new baby means new routine, there's going to be some sleep deprivation involved. We've all gone on autopilot while driving before. So stick something in the back seat you have to take inside with you at final destination. Child's obviously the most important thing back there, but again, if it's not your normal day taking kiddo somewhere, if you put like your bag, a purse, your phone, your left shoe, because that's not the foot you're driving with, something in the back where you're only going to take a few steps away from the car, go, oh, forgot that, turn around, you see kiddo fell asleep on the way, and so you forgot to drop them off. These are just things to educate caregivers on. We also have found that about 25% of hot car incidences are when a child gets into a car by themselves and then cannot get back out. So just making sure you're talking to those toddlers and those younger children that cars aren't toys. We're not supposed to climb in it for hide and seek. We're not supposed to climb in it to try and drive, to keep fobs away from kids so they can't let themselves into vehicles and then won't be able to get back out. So we just want to make sure we're trying to keep kids as safe as possible when they're in vehicles. Okay, we just want to make sure we have consistent messaging. I'm almost done with y'all. Ages birth to 2, we want them to stay rear facing at that specific angle that the car seat requires to help make it easiest to breathe and protect that big old head, neck, and spine. Ages 2 to 4, they might still be able to ride rear facing. Some car seats allow kids to go up to 50 pounds facing the back of the car. So depending on the child, depending on the seat, they might be able to stay rear facing, or they're going to turn around forward facing around that time. 4 to 6 or 7, we want to try and use that 5-point harness until we can before moving to that booster seat. And then ages 7 to 10, use that booster seat until that, again, try that 4-9 so they can 5-step to keep them safe. Then the back seat, and then always buckled up. Okay, this is a thank you from Heidi and I. And then this is just a bunch of resources that you can use. The ones in the center are finding a car seat technician near you. So that is, families can scan that, enter their zip code, and it'll give them a list of car seat techs in their area that they can go to and get help from. The other one is identifying counterfeit seats, because unfortunately those are becoming more and more prevalent, not just in Ohio, but everywhere. Okay, and I believe that's everything. So I will stop sharing my screen so I can see what's going on in the chat.
Kirsten, thank you so much. Yeah, any questions for her?
I do see that somebody said that they would love handouts on for boosters. So if, I'll put my email in the chat. So if Ellen, if you could just email me, or if you get in contact with Brooke, we can get you that information.
Thank you. Yeah, I will send everything out in this Friday's email, and then along with Kirsten's email, and then you can connect for resources. And then the QR code screen is helpful too. I'm still fascinated by the growing industry for counterfeit child safety.
Yes, it's very infuriating. And now there's even some counterfeit, like a lot of them are travel systems, what they claim to be. So like they come with a stroller, or they can't claim that they do. And so that's very enticing to a lot of families because it's very convenient to have that aspect. But yeah, not the strollers aren't safe. They don't pass the safety standards. The car seats certainly aren't safe. So it's something we're battling.
Every day, right? Okay, thank you so much. Again, I will put you in touch with Kirsten's email, and we will move forward. Kirsten, thank you so much. Okay, hopefully we are back to my screen and QI Corner. We have time for it today. So sustainability, we talked a little bit about sustainability at the beginning of the program. Now we are reaching program wrap. We are almost there. And then we want to arm you with some additional information on this. So sustainability, what pieces of the SEEK program will you take with you after the program ends? So we had a little bit of help sent to you on May 2nd. So Ohio AAP's QI Sustainability Summit presentation. This was from a couple years ago, but it's still very relevant. And it's from Ronnie Christopher, who does a great job. She, again, is the QI guru, and we appreciate her help. And then you are able to review this with your practice teams. So go back, kind of look through your inbox for the email from May 2nd. If you don't see the link for this, please let me know. And everybody learns differently. So this is kind of another way to break down sustainability into a couple tips. And I will send this out in the Friday email. But we created a document a couple years ago, kind of breaking it down into plan, assess, identify, create, build, consider, monitor, communicate, and create again. So that kind of gives you an idea of looping like a PDSA cycle, but moving on to sustainability. What pieces and parts do you want to take with you after the program is done? So next steps, the last for this wave, Seek Action Period call is Tuesday, June 10 at noon. We will be hearing about Project Dawn, a very impactful program in Ohio. We're very thankful for that. And then program information regarding wrap up was emailed to you on May 9th. So 2 big emails went out in the last 2 weeks. So May 2nd for sustainability and May 9th for program wrap up and stipend information. Again, if you don't have this email, if you need anything resent to you, I'm happy to do that. And then just posted to the SEEK resource page is our drowning prevention presentation from Dr. Tracy McCallan in the Cleveland area. She did a really good job for Grand Rounds a couple weeks ago. We were in touch with this, and we were able to use some of her Grand Rounds recording she so graciously shared with us. So we're very thankful for Dr. McCallan for sharing this with us. Again, this is on the SEEK resource page. It is on the left-hand side under the Action Period call recordings, right above the Joyful Together recording. So I highly recommend that you check out her drowning prevention pieces. They have been updated for this year from last year, and there's a lot of good resources in there. If you need any information on this or any questions for me, please let me know. Questions overall for Kristen, for Zainab, for me regarding the program. You know, you can reach out anytime, but if anyone has anything to add. Okay. Hearing none, I'm happy to give all of you some time back. Thank you again for joining today. Please reach out with any questions, but I will also be in touch. Have a good week. Thank you.